Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Also exciting to be back.
So today we're going to be exploring the writings of Ellen G. White,
Okay.
specifically an entry from My Life Today.
Our life today, yeah.
And, as Seventh-day Adventist, truth is something that is
Corridor.
hugely important to us, right?
Absolutely.
And this passage really kind of hit me in a new way.
Yeah, I can see why.
It frames it just so powerfully.
There's definitely like an urgency and power in her words,
Okay.
even in this short devotional.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah,
And she starts by quoting Isaiah 26:2.
right.
Which says, "Open ye the gates, that the righteous nation, which keepeth the truth, may enter in." I mean, this imagery of gates opening for those who hold on to truth,
Yeah.
it just makes you think about what those gates represent.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's on the other side.
Right. It points to this idea that truth isn't just some abstract concept.
Right.
It has real implications. And in the context of Isaiah,
Yeah.
it's about entering God's kingdom, a kingdom built on righteousness and justice.
And the only way in is through faithfulness to that truth.
Exactly.
So it's not just enough to know it.
Right.
We got to live it.
Absolutely.
We talk so much about, as Adventists, keeping the Sabbath, following biblical principles.
Yeah.
This almost makes it feel even bigger, though.
It does.
Like there's this cosmic doorway
It's true.
involved.
Yeah, and it really highlights the weight of our choices, the impact of our commitment to truth on this grand scale.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and this connects to her next point where she talks about fighting the battles of the Lord.
Okay, now that phrase, fighting the battles of the Lord,
Yeah,
it's powerful, but it also raises a lot of questions for me.
for sure.
What do these battles look like for us as Christians living in a modern world?
Right.
It's not like we're picking up, swords and shields anymore.
Well, and that's where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
For us today, those battles are often more subtle,
Right.
but they can be just as intense. Think about like the challenges we face to our faith. The doubts that creep in, the conflicting worldviews we encounter.
Just even the daily grind.
Exactly.
That can really wear us down spiritually.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's more about standing firm in our beliefs,
Yeah.
even when they're unpopular, even when we're tempted to compromise.
Exactly. And it's about living out those beliefs authentically, even when it's difficult, even when it costs us something.
And I think for us as Seventh-day Adventists, there's a very specific dimension to this.
Definitely.
I mean, think about the Sabbath.
Oh, yeah.
Standing firm in that belief
Yeah.
can sometimes feel like a battle in itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially in a society that prioritizes, work and productivity.
Above everything else.
Right.
It's not just about the Sabbath, though, is it?
It's not.
It's about all those beliefs and practices that set us apart.
Yeah.
The things that challenge the status quo. It's about holding on to those truths, even when they make us different, even when they cause friction.
And that friction can feel very real.
We can.
In our personal lives, our workplaces, even within our own families.
Yeah.
It can be so tempting to just blend in and avoid the conflict.
Oh, for sure.
But this devotional is reminding us that standing firm in truth,
Yeah.
it's essential.
It's a part of who we are.
It's part of our identity, our calling.
Yeah. And it's not about being aggressive or confrontational.
No.
It's about being anchored in our convictions, letting our actions speak louder than words.
I love that.
Yeah. So in a way, these battles are about aligning our lives with God's truth, even when it's hard, even when it feels like swimming upstream.
I think that's a great way to put it.
And it's this commitment to truth,
Yeah.
this willingness to stand firm, even amidst opposition,
Yeah.
that ultimately leads to victory.
And that ties back to that imagery in Isaiah.
Oh, yeah.
Entering God's kingdom.
Yeah.
Finding true peace and security.
But it's not just about our own personal salvation, is it?
It's not.
There's this line she writes, "If you are seeking to be a blessing to others, God will bless you."
That's beautiful.
So it's this outward focus, this desire to share what we found,
Yeah.
that's also part of this battle.
That's exactly right. And that's a key element of our Adventist heritage.
It's about service.
That emphasis on service, on outreach, on sharing our faith with others.
I mean, you think about all the hospitals, schools,
Yeah.
and humanitarian projects
Absolutely.
Adventists are involved in around the world.
Yeah.
It's like we're trying to be a blessing in practical, tangible ways.
And that's so important.
It is.
It's not just about words, it's about actions.
Yeah.
It's about demonstrating God's love
Yeah.
in a way that meets people's needs, in a way that brings hope and healing.
But how does this connect to the battles that she's talking about?
Right.
Is being a blessing somehow a part of fighting for truth?
I think it is,
Okay.
because when we seek to bless others, we're reflecting God's character. We're embodying his love and compassion. And that in itself is a powerful witness to truth.
So it's like we're fighting darkness with light,
Exactly.
meeting hate with love.
Yeah.
And in doing so, we're actually advancing the cause of truth.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And I think that's at the heart of what Ellen White is saying in this devotional.
Yeah.
It's this understanding that our commitment to truth isn't just about personal piety.
Right.
It's about making a difference in the world, about being a force for good, about bringing God's kingdom to earth in tangible, practical ways.
I love that.
Yeah,
And it's so inspiring.
it is.
It's amazing how she connects those dots, how living a life of service becomes this powerful testimony to truth. And she doesn't stop there. She goes on to say, the church is God's agency for the proclamation of truth.
Wow.
It's like she's broadening the scope,
Yeah.
reminding us that this isn't just about individual effort.
Right. She's shifting the focus from the personal to the collective,
Yeah.
highlighting the role of the church in this battle for truth. We're called to be a community that upholds truth, that proclaims it boldly, that lives it out
Yeah.
in a way that draws others to God.
And that resonates so strongly with the Adventist mission, right?
It does.
I mean, we're all about sharing the three angels' messages,
Right.
proclaiming the good news of Jesus' soon return.
Absolutely.
It's like our whole identity is wrapped up
It really is.
in spreading truth.
And that's what makes this devotional so relevant for us as Adventists.
Yeah.
It's calling us back to our core mission,
Yeah.
reminding us that we have a responsibility not just to know the truth, but to share it with the world.
It's not enough to just keep it to ourselves.
Yeah,
We had to be active in proclaiming it.
exactly.
This reminds me of the disciples in the early church.
Yeah.
Their zeal, their passion for spreading the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of that, there's a quote in the devotional
Okay.
that connects this idea of zeal to the concept of hastening Christ's return.
Okay.
She writes, "It is the privilege of every Christian not only to look for, but to hasten the coming of the Savior." Now that's a powerful statement.
Yeah.
How does actively living our faith hasten Christ's return?
That's a question that sparked a lot of discussion and debate over the years.
Yeah, for sure.
But one way to understand it is that by actively living out our faith, by sharing the gospel, by working to make the world a better place,
Yeah.
we are, in a sense, preparing the way for Christ's return.
So it's not like we have some magic formula or timetable,
No.
but it's more about creating a receptive environment,
Yeah,
making the world a place where God's love and truth can flourish.
exactly. It's about fulfilling the Great Commission,
Yeah.
spreading the message of hope and salvation to every corner of the earth.
And the more people that come to know and love Jesus,
Right.
the more hearts are prepared for his return.
Absolutely.
And that ties back to the idea of truth triumphing.
That's
Because ultimately, the more we live out truth, the more we share it, the more it spreads and takes root in people's hearts.
Absolutely. And there's this amazing line in the devotional that really captures this idea. Truth passing by those who despise and reject it will triumph.
Wow.
It's like truth has this inherent power,
Yeah.
this unstoppable momentum
That just can't be silenced or suppressed.
that can't be silenced or suppressed.
It's so encouraging, especially when it feels like truth is getting ground out in the noise of our world.
Yeah,
Bombarded with conflicting messages and ideologies.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It is, this devotional reminds us that ultimately God's truth will prevail.
Mm-hmm.
It may not always be easy. It may face opposition and resistance,
Right.
but it will ultimately win out.
It will win out.
And that's a promise we can cling to, a source of hope in a world that can often feel chaotic and uncertain.
And that's especially meaningful for us as Adventists.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, we have a history of facing opposition
Yes.
for our beliefs, for upholding the Sabbath, for proclaiming the three angels' messages.
Mhm.
Yet despite all that, the church has continued to grow and spread around the world.
You're absolutely right. And that in itself is a testament to the enduring power of truth.
It really is.
It shows that even when truth is unpopular, even when it goes against the grain of society,
Yeah.
it has a way of resonating with the human heart,
It does.
of finding fertile ground and taking root.
It's like a seed that's planted.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it may face storms and harsh conditions,
Yeah.
it still finds a way to grow and blossom.
That's a beautiful analogy, and it reminds us that our role as Christians and as Adventists
Yeah.
is to be faithful sowers of truth,
Mhm.
to plant those seeds in every corner of the world,
Okay.
trusting that God will give the increase.
Even if we don't always see the immediate results,
Right.
Even if it feels like we're casting seeds on barren ground.
Exactly.
We can have faith that God is working, that his truth is making its way into hearts and minds.
It's a long game.
It is.
A marathon, not a sprint.
It definitely is.
Yeah, and that's where patience and perseverance come in. Yeah. This devotional is calling us to be steadfast, to not grow weary in doing good, to keep pressing forward even when we face obstacles and setbacks.
Because ultimately we know that truth will triumph.
It will?
And that victory is worth fighting for, worth sacrificing for, worth dedicating our lives to.
And it's a victory that we get to be a part of.
Yeah.
A story that we get to write, not just with our words, but with our actions, with our lives.
Wow.
And that's a pretty incredible thought.
This has been such an insightful deep dive.
It really has.
Into Ellen G. White's devotional.
Yeah.
It's amazing how just a few short paragraphs can pack such a punch.
It's true.
You know, really challenging us to think about our role in the grand scheme of things.
It's a powerful piece of writing.
It really is.
And I think it speaks to the heart of what it means to be a Christian, and especially a Seventh-day Adventist in today's world.
So as we wrap up, what are some key takeaways that you hope our listeners will walk away with?
Right.
What's the essence of her message?
Well,
the thing that should stick with us long after this deep dive is over.
I think one of the most important takeaways is the absolute centrality of truth to our faith. It's not enough to just passively believe.
Right.
We're called to actively live out truth, to defend it, to proclaim it, even when it's difficult.
It's like she's saying truth isn't just some abstract concept.
Right.
It's a force that should shape our lives, our choices, our interactions with the world around us.
Exactly. And that connects to another key takeaway, this idea that truth will ultimately triumph. No matter how much opposition it faces.
Yeah.
No matter how much darkness seems to be swirling around.
Right.
God's truth will prevail.
Such a powerful reminder, especially in a world where we're bombarded with so many conflicting messages, so much noise that tries to drown out the truth.
It is, and I think that leads us to a final thought-provoking question for our listeners to ponder.
Okay, I'm ready. Hit us with it.
How can you be a part of the triumph of truth in your own life and community? What are the battles you're facing? The places where truth is being challenged, and how can you stand firm?
That's such a great question, and it brings it home.
Yeah.
Makes it personal.
Yeah.
It's easy to talk about truth in these grand sweeping terms.
It is.
But it's in those everyday choices.
Right.
Those moments where we choose to speak up, stand up for what's right, that the real battle is fought and won.
I think that's exactly right. It's about those small acts of courage, those seemingly insignificant moments where we choose light over darkness, love over hate, truth over falsehood.
And those moments add up.
They do.
They create a ripple effect that spreads outward.
Yeah.
That contributes to the larger victory of truth in the world.
And that's a victory we all get to be a part of, a story we all get to write with our lives.
What a privilege.
It really is.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Ellen G. White's inspiring words.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you've been challenged, encouraged, and maybe even a little bit convicted. And to all our listeners out there, keep seeking truth, keep fighting the good fight, and may your life be a testament to the enduring power of God's Word.